The interview ended before it truly began. The single father quietly gathered his worn folder, thanked everyone for their time, and walked out of the towering glass building with a smile that hid 1,000 disappointments. He had no idea that only minutes later, the billionaire CEO herself would come running after him, calling his name in front of hundreds of stunned employees. Sometimes life doesn't reward the most qualified person. Sometimes it rewards the person who refuses to let kindness disappear, even when everything else has. If you believe kindness and second chances can change someone's life, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel USA Enlightened Stories for more emotional and inspiring stories every day. Morning sunlight poured across the busy streets as Nathaniel Nate Reyes adjusted a tiny backpack on his 7-year-old son Leo before dropping him off at school. Nate had been raising Leo alone ever since tragedy shattered their small family years earlier. Every morning followed the same routine. A simple breakfast, encouraging words, a tight hug, and one silent promise that somehow everything would get better. The promise became harder to keep with every passing month. Bills continued to pile up. Rent was overdue again, and the savings he once had completely disappeared. Yet Nate never allowed Leo to see fear in his father's eyes. Children deserve hope, even when adults struggled to find it themselves. Today's interview felt like his final opportunity. The position at one of the city's largest technology companies offered enough salary to rebuild their lives. Nate spent days preparing, polishing his old shoes, borrowing a clean shirt from a neighbor, and practicing interview questions late into the night after Leo had fallen asleep. Every answer reflected years of experience, determination, and honesty. He believed that if someone simply gave him one chance, he would never waste it. The company's headquarters stood like a monument to success. Employees hurried confidently through marble halls while Nate carefully followed directions toward the interview room. He noticed expensive artwork decorating every wall and wondered what it would feel like to belong somewhere that stable. The interview itself remained polite but painfully brief. The panel thanked him, glanced repeatedly at their schedules, and explained that another candidate possessed stronger corporate experience. Nate nodded respectfully. Deep inside, another dream quietly broke apart. Instead of becoming angry, Nate thanked every interviewer individually. On his way out, he noticed an elderly janitor struggling to gather papers scattered across the polished floor after a cart tipped over. Most people walked around the mess without slowing down. Nate immediately knelt beside the man, helping organize every document despite knowing he had nowhere else to be except another disappointing trip home. He carefully stacked the papers, fixed the broken wheel on the cleaning cart using a small screwdriver from his bag, and wished the grateful janitor a peaceful day before leaving the building. Outside, Nate stared briefly toward the bright afternoon sky. He calculated how much money remained in his wallet. It was barely enough for bus fare and groceries. He decided to walk several miles instead, hoping to save enough to buy Leo's favorite bread for dinner. Every step felt heavier than the last, but giving up had never been an option. Fathers could be exhausted, discouraged, and uncertain, yet they still had to keep walking. Back inside the headquarters, something unexpected unfolded. The elderly janitor wasn't an ordinary maintenance worker. He was Bernard Cole, the retired founder's lifelong friend and trusted advisor, someone whose opinions still carried enormous influence within the company. Bernard immediately requested a meeting with Billionaire CEO Alexandra Sinclair. Instead of discussing resumes or qualifications, he described the stranger who failed the interview, but stayed to help someone everyone else ignored. He spoke about Nate's humility, patience, and instinctive kindness. Alexandra listened carefully because she believed that character often predicted leadership better than polished presentations. Curious, Alexandra reviewed the interview recording and Nate's application herself. She noticed strong technical skills, impressive community volunteer work, and years spent balancing parenthood while supporting struggling local businesses. The only thing missing was experience inside a large corporation. She realized the interview panel had focused entirely on perfect credentials while overlooking extraordinary character. Without hesitation, Alexandra hurried downstairs. Employees stared in disbelief as the billionaire CEO walked quickly through the lobby before breaking into a run outside the building. Security guards exchanged confused glances while assistants struggled to keep pace. Across the street, Nate continued walking, unaware that someone was calling his name. When he finally turned around, he froze in surprise. Alexandra caught her breath before apologizing for letting him leave. She explained that while he had not been the strongest candidate on paper, he had demonstrated something impossible to teach: genuine integrity. When nobody was watching, the company needed people like that more than flawless resumes. Nate stood speechless as she offered him something even better than the original position. Instead of a temporary contract, she offered a paid leadership development role complete with professional training, health benefits, flexible hours for parenting, and mentorship directly from senior executives. She believed his compassion could inspire an entire workplace. Tears filled Nate's eyes, not because of the salary, but because someone had finally seen beyond his circumstances. Years of rejection had convinced him that being a struggling single father made people overlook everything else. For the first time in years, someone recognized his value before his appearance. That evening, Nate picked up Leo from school carrying fresh groceries and the biggest smile his son had seen in a long time. They celebrated with homemade pancakes despite it not being a special occasion. To them, hope itself deserved celebrating. Leo laughed louder than he had in months, unaware that his father's greatest victory wasn't getting a job. It was proving that kindness still mattered in a world that often rushed past people who needed to be noticed. Over the following months, Nate embraced every opportunity. He worked tirelessly, studied late into the evenings, and earned the respect of colleagues through honesty rather than ambition alone. His leadership style reflected the hardships he had survived. He remembered every employee's name, listened before making decisions, and never ignored those performing unseen work behind the scenes. The company culture slowly changed because one father's quiet compassion became contagious. Alexandra often reflected on that unforgettable afternoon. She realized billion-dollar companies were built not only by brilliant strategies, but by people whose hearts remained grounded. Hiring Nate became one of the most meaningful decisions of her career because profits increased alongside employee trust, loyalty, and purpose. If this story touched your heart and reminded you that kindness is never wasted, please like this video, share it with family and friends, leave a heartfelt comment, and subscribe to USA Enlightened Stories so more people can discover stories that inspire hope. Special request, comment below with "Kindness always wins" if you believe one small act of compassion can completely change someone's future. Life rarely changes in one dramatic moment. More often, it changes through quiet decisions that nobody expects to matter. A father choosing kindness after rejection. A leader willing to look beyond a resume. A child witnessing hope return to his home. Those moments remind us that success is not measured only by wealth or titles, but by the lives we lived along the way. Sometimes the opportunity you think you lost is only making room for something far greater than you ever imagined. And sometimes the person running after you is not chasing your experience, but your character.